Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden for part 3 of an entire garden tour in November. And for those of you who follow my channel already for quite a while, you might recognize this area because this is where I was recently sharing some videos with you. So this is the rear end of the garden. This is pretty much where the garden ends. So I haven't said in my first video, maybe I should have said it, like, just that you know, this garden is outside the city of Gdańsk at the south coast of the Baltic Sea. We are here in a zone 7B. It's very, very close to the Baltic Sea. So when we're standing on the upper balcony in the house and turn our head to the left, we can even see where the river, because we have a river in front of the house, ends in the Baltic Sea, which means that the entire garden that I've so far shown you was or is located on top of a dike. And here we are at the rear end of the dike. So to my left, this is the area that I leveled out into terraces, and we're really going to walk along the entire area and show you what happens. And here we're standing really at the ground level. So to my right, there is a farmland. Where we're standing now, this is a kind of narrow strip that I always refer to as no man's land, because it is in between our property and the farmland, so nobody takes care of it. It's completely overgrown with a lot of like stingy nettles, perennial weeds, blackberries, all different kind of shrubs. Nothing was looking really nice, nothing made sense. And this autumn I was like, I've had it. I want to transform this area and make it look into the nice last bit of the garden, and this is exactly where I'm standing now. So I shared a couple of videos here with you where I started planting, for example, some daylilies. I planted GMs, I planted, what did I plant actually? Blazing Star, some really nice things. And next year you will definitely see me planting more and more here, because this is when I start really creating this entire area here. And if we continue walking here, you will see some of the plants that came from the upper garden, and they just didn't grow in the upper garden. They really hated their life. Then I'd plant them from the upper garden onto the slope, and they weren't doing anything. And then this year, May, April, I think, I put some of the plants in. I thought, you know what, you just go here, and if you like it, you like it. And if you don't, you know what, then you're for the chop. Hydrangea paniculata, they hated it in the upper garden. They were never growing. They had brown leaves at this time of the year, if they had any leaves left. Like, it was really tragedy. So I put them here, and honestly, they were overgrown by stingy nettles throughout summer. And just a month ago, I started really weeding and going through here, discovered them again. I was like, okay, right plant in the right location. It's a little bit like a dip here, almost like a trench, and that means that it's more moist because all the extra water from the slope probably washes down here. So digging here, I could always say, oh, the soil is never really dry. It's very lovely, it's very moist, and this is exactly what hydrangeas in generally really love and appreciate. So this is why I planted more hydrangeas there, because I thought that they were very happy and they will thrive here, and I can't wait to see how they're going to perform next year. A couple of things stayed here, such as the elders, for example. So I'm going to see how I will move forward with them. But elders are one of those shrubs that you can cut back hard, and they will always come with a lot of new vigorous growth. And that's exactly what happened like last year. Like, I've got these big stumps here because last year I really came in, cut them back almost to ground level, and everything that you see here just grew this year. So you can tell how vigorous these plants actually are. Then in my back, if you continue walking, I start weeding here. So up until here, I was weeding my way through. So all of this is prepared for planting. And then in my back, everything is still kind of like big rumble, basically. It's just a lot of plants that are overgrown here, stingy nettles, grasses, and I really need to come in here and continue weeding. And what I want to do in this area here is, and eventually I'm going to remove some of the elders here. I want to put potentially 4 raised beds here. And I want to put some more vegetables in here. I want to have a row of potatoes potentially. So I really need to come in here and remove all of those stingy nettles. And you see on the ground that it looks a little brown, because what I did last year is, as a layer of mulch, all the dead material that came from the top garden, like all the perennials and all of the ornamental grasses that I cut back, I came in here and just put them here. And it worked fairly well. They started to break down, they enrich the soil, they just do goodness, and this is what I want to do next year. March again, come in here and really top dress everything with all the dead material that I cut back in the upper gardens, all the perennials. And then I put like 4 raised beds here, just that high, maybe really easy, cheap ones that I can just fill with some soil. And if I don't like them next, you know what, I'm just going to remove them and put them somewhere else. What I did as well is, so the entire back of a garden is framed with a dead hedge, where I always use use a lot of the cuttings from the back of a garden or from the entire garden, like all the trees, all the shrubs, like the elders that I cut back, everything goes in here, and that hedges are just a wonderful area for all different kind of wildlife. So I've seen that birds came in and definitely nested in here. I've seen frogs kind of in there. Hedgehog was like kind of like crawling underneath there. So in general, a dead hedge is always a lovely thing for the habitat. But what I did is here to have an easy access, I started to just like cut it a little bit and build a little bit of an entry here so that we can really walk in here, because otherwise I was always like climbing over the dead hedge and it was not easy to access. And now finally I've got a nice access from the slope really down to the last layer finally here. Here on my right, this is where the veg garden is, and this is the last area that I will tour you, but you can still see a little bit because some of the things are looking really fantastic, especially on this layer here. This is the last layer where I grew all of my pumpkins, and I've got a lot of Hokkaido pumpkins. So if you just come closer and you will look in there, there are like 3 orange Hokkaido lying there. In the back there is a blue doll, which is this grayish thing. And I think on the left, the one that looks really green, that is one Muscata Provence that finally produced a pumpkin, but it's too late for it, so it's never going to ripen anymore. But Blue Doll and Hokkaido, they're really success story. Hokkaido always grows great, but next year I'm going to try a Hokkaido with 3 other varieties. I'm really excited to show you what kind of seed I ordered already and what kind of pumpkins I want to grow in this area. And what you can see is I'm kind of like climbing over here because the pumpkins don't know the boundaries. So they were growing everywhere. They're like even growing like in all the trees that are behind you, and I saw pumpkins hanging there. So at one point I'm going to go in there and see if I can still harvest something more. Here to my right, this is our main compost heap of the garden. So a lot of the things that we cut back always go straight on here. And what I started doing is some of these like fence sections that I always build with like cuttings. Best is from hazel, because if you just look at it also up front, you see that hazel has a really nice color, it ages nice, and I always work in bundles of 4 or more. So you always have like these like nice thick effects here. And I think it's nice, just like, still I'm going to do it all the way up here, to number one, hide the compost heap a little bit, but I use these a lot. Like on the slope, you will come across these fence sections a lot. Alfie's still with us. She's having a good time, right? And you look like a little piglet because down by the slope there's a lot of soil. Yeah. But yeah, she's having a good time in the garden. She really enjoys it, especially days like this where the weather is so amazing. So if we continue walking, you see a lot of things are starting to peter out here. This is like fully southwest facing, like west is to my left and south is to my back. So a lot of the things come to bloom very early here, but you see, for example, the petunias, and this is something that you will see on the entire slope. They are still in full bloom, and I haven't deadheaded them for probably 3 months by now because I was just too lazy and they don't care. We are in November and the petunias are a beautiful carpet, still flowering, wonderful. The cosmos, they definitely start to peter out. That was apricot lemonade, if I'm not wrong. Really nice, produced a lot of blooms, very bushy. So if you're looking for a nice apricot color cosmo for next year, I grew it from seed, definitely very sturdy, wonderful variety. Dahlias, they also here start to peter out. That was totally tangerine. I wish I could show you a single bloom, but there isn't. They really all stopped flowering. There are more dahlias in the back that I can show you, but wonderful here. One plant that doesn't know its boundaries, and next year I need to weed them better, because this year I was like, oh, they're self-germinating, how wonderful. Nasturtiums. And they're great for salad, and they're edible, and they're wonderful, and they start to trail down here, which you can see. So they also start hiding the ugly black landscape fabric that is still here. But as we continue walking, I'll show you an area where I start hiding it and how I want to make the slope look nicer. But nasturtiums, they produce a lot of seeds, they go everywhere. And when I saw that they were germinating after winter, I was excited, and I didn't weed any of them. And this is the situation now. So next year, I'm definitely going to have an upper hand on them and make a decision on what stays and what doesn't. Because otherwise, they start to smother all the other plants here, which is not ideal. Here, a drift of phlox. I bought it as a red phlox, very cheap, just cuttings. Because phlox is one of those plants, if you just buy cuttings and you put them, like root cuttings, and you put them in the ground, they will come. It's almost impossible that they won't. Make sure that they don't dry out completely, and this will happen, but I can still show you blooms. If you just come a little closer here, you see what color the red phlox flowered. It was Barbie pink. I hope you still get to see it a little bit. It was beautiful though. I mean, it had quite an impact from the distance. It was glowing here. And it also grew to quite an amazing height. There was one that was supposed to grow maybe 70 centimeters. And again, it's 1 meter 20 probably. Really nice, very vigorous. So yeah, not red, still I'm happy with this because I think it is just a beautiful plant and you can never have enough phlox in your garden. So if you continue walking, here are plants that I planted together with you. So again, 2 more hydrangeas, which I mainly planted for the beautiful autumnal foliage. So if you just look at them, now with the late afternoon sun, this is a reason why I needed to have them, because a foliage like this in autumn is wonderful. They have these like lace cap flowers in a bluish tone. If you have acidic soil, I don't, so I think that they will be pretty much pink for me, but I don't mind. They'd be very delicate and I think I love them, but the foliage stays on them ages already. Like I bought them when they already had an autumnal foliage and now they're in the ground for probably a month by now and they still have foliage. So wonderful. If you just scroll down a little bit, there's a video about it. If you're intrigued, I'll give you the variety name and all the information about it. And in the same video, I planted a new aster variety that I wanted to try out. This is called Marie Ballard, and if they started, or as they started, you couldn't see the yellow center. They were just like little blue pompons. I was just trying to find one, maybe like this one here. They start off like this a little bit, doubles. They're still a little small this year, so next year they will grow pretty much to double the height. But I think that they are wonderful. It's a beautiful color, massive, huge blooms. I mean, if you look at the single bloom, how big one of them is, really wonderful. A great aster. Can't wait to show you how it's going to look next year, how it's going to perform, also how it spreads, how vigorous it is. So asters are just one of those plants that really excite me. And I really try to restrain myself and don't go crazy over them because there's so many varieties. But when I saw this in the garden, I was like, I need to have it and I want to add it to the garden. Here, amaranth, fantastic. This is called Autumn Palette. So obviously for this time of the year, it fits perfectly. When I saw it in midsummer, I was a little bit on the fences with this variety and I was like, oh my goodness, the garden is filled with nice summer color. And then I have this rust thing here. Is that really nice? But obviously as you go into autumn, this is wonderful and it flowers also endlessly. Good height, very compact, very happy with it. This is exposed to a lot of wind here and still it looks fantastic. So these seeds came from Thompson & Morgan. I'm very happy with them, so I can highly recommend them to you. If we continue walking, here, this is one of my favorite dahlias. I'm going to give you the link to the online shop down below the video here. Beautiful color. I think this dahlia is the reason why I started to like orange this year. Number one, it has beautiful blooms. I just really love the growing habit of it. I love how many blooms there are, and still in November it still keeps on producing buds and blooms. And it is orange, but it has tints of pinks in it. And it kind of looks like popsicle. It's quintessential a summer color, and this is why I really love this one. Also in combination here with the wonderful leaves of the cannas, and still the cannas, they have more flower spikes coming. So if the temperatures would be warmer, they would just flower endlessly now. Here at the last layer, there are some offspring that came for free. So some bestaughter from my upper garden. I think this is Taurus. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. And more Aster Schöne von Dietlikon. I just put some root cuttings in here earlier on in the year, and this is what happened. I mean, beautiful. Plants for free, and they will spread here, and which is nice. They're so tall, they can also really see them from the upper garden when you're standing there. So I think when there's a nice drift and carpet of these blue blooms, this is going to be beautiful. So if you continue walking, you see here a lot of black. Well, you see that I need to change this a little bit. Okay, this is a way on... This is not safe right now. Okay, so this is what I used to navigate on the slope, or what I did on all the others. This is new. I put wooden boards under here because then they're standing really sturdy, but I was too lazy to do it now. But after the rain, I see that I really, really need to do this. Yeah, this is safe. Okay, you can also walk here. Yeah, always projects. This is what gardening is. It's never going to be boring. So you come. Okay, don't fall. Good. This works well. One of the things I really want to show you, and it's good that we are now in the late afternoon, is the beautyberry, the shrub that I planted here with you. And look at these berries now with the afternoon sun. I can even see them from the upper garden when I stand there. Love it. I'm going to have more of them. I got so hooked up with this one. I was so happy that I found it as a stander, but now I'm like, you know what, if I find the perfect location, I'm also going to have it as a shrub. These berries are everything, and they will stay for so long throughout winter, apparently. It's the first time I grow it in my own garden, and I couldn't be happier with that because it works really well with the colors here. You know, for the back of the garden, I focus on color combinations of red and purple, and this is exactly what happens here. I've got like the beautiful purple berries, which is really a nice thing on also how to bring autumnal color to your garden, not just by bloom and foliage, also by berries like these. And then I've got the red bistorta here. This is definitely Taurus. This came from offspring. And then more petunias there. And this is a good example on how I want to have the entire slope visually. I have these fence sections that I stain black, cut them in half, and then I just install them. So I still need to put something on top as like a nice way how to finish it off. But I think visually this is nice on how to hide the landscape fabric. And also I think it's quite cute with the little basket weave fence that I did there and how the petunias are growing through there. And on top you can see some more cannas there. Some Verbena bonariensis, some really nice ruby red dahlias still bloom, but they petering out, and then some snapdragons, petunias, asters with their ricinus. Really a nice kind of like mini tropical garden. That was my intention for that area. Really focus on a lot of tender plants and a lot of plants that will come out, and this is also a way on how I work on the slope. I have a lot of tender plants and I have a lot of annuals here. There are some perennials. There are the bistorta, there is phlox here, I've got peonies here, but I would say probably 70% of the phlox are just annuals and tender plants, because next year or in winter time I'm going to sit down and kind of like draw another planting scheme on how I want to change things, and also take all of the things that I learned this year from the slope, how colors work nice, what plants are looking nice, what plants I liked, where I maybe want to investigate a little deeper in. I really fell in love with salvia this year, also with annual salvia. So salvias are one of those annuals that I really intend on planting big time here next year around. While cosmos, I like the cosmos, but I think I'm going to reduce the amount of cosmos. I try to find a really great red variety, and unfortunately I haven't. Like the red ones that I grew, they were nice, but they started to peter out very fast, a lot faster to the pink or the apricot ones. And pink is not a color that I really want to focus here on this part of the garden, even though I have the pink phlox, yes, but still I try to have different color combinations. So this is the fun part of the slope, that it's like always changing. The upper garden, I've got all the perennials, I've got the shrubs. So, you know, you plant the things and they stay there. Well, here, this is going to be very interactive, and every year I try to make it look different. And I think this is the fun of this entire area. So if we continue walking, I quickly try to sneak around here. You see a lovely surprise. This is a delphinium. This is the one delphinium that is never eaten by slugs and snails, and it is eventually going to flower again in November. Can you believe it? I collected seeds earlier on the year, and I have got some nice offspring that I will show you once we're in the veg garden. So I hope that it is a variety that kind of is not attacked by slugs and snails, because moving on, it was a beautiful color. It was steely lavender, and I want to have an entire big patch just of this delphinium here, and then potentially in the upper garden as well, because I love delphiniums and I tried it so many times, but every single time slugs and snails come in. One more dahlia. That was the last one to come really late into the year. Oh, I forgot the name now. I wish I could give you the name. But honestly, it's one of these standard varieties that you can grow in the garden center. This is, by the way, a cactus dahlia. Dahlias are defined into, I think, 15 different flower groups, if I'm not wrong, maybe even more. And cactus, I think, is very nice also for cut flower arrangements because of the texture that they bring. So if we continue walking here, you see again, I already started to mantle this side of the slope with some of the fence sections, and I put a wooden board on top of it. So this is kind of like how visually I want to move forward. And if you just come up here, I want to show you one plant because I think it's really nice, and it took forever for it to grow, but beautiful. I love cannas because they're just like tropical and something special and a little glamorous about them with the foliage, almost like banana leaves. And you've got these like flower spikes here, and they flower in a beautiful red tone. So even now with the afternoon sun, they're wonderful, and I think that they're just wonderful with the grass here, which again, this is Panacetum vertigo. Grew a lot more vigorous to what I thought. And a lot of people warned me and said, like, do you really want to put them up there on the bench? Maybe this is not a good idea. You were right, because they're so vigorous that it's very hard to sit on the bench at all. So next year, I'm not going to put them really up there, just here probably or somewhere else on the slope. but this is one of the grasses that I definitely going to use next year again in different areas of the garden because I was so happy with that, but it is not hardy. Here in winter, they will definitely die back if you're on a really nice warm climate zone, like in the Mediterranean or in the south states of the United States. I'm pretty sure that this is going to survive and grow even taller to what it does here, but all of the grasses have red foliage, but the Japanese bloodgrass, that is a perennial, but all the panacetums that have red foliage, they're not hardy here. They will definitely die back during winter time. You can see a lot of the foliage is here. I'm not really cleaning up this area here, I just let things happen. But petunia is still looking fantastic with the asters here. Really a wonderful combination. One plant that does not thrive really well are these like smaller varieties of asters, like pillow asters. I'm not sure if you really call them like that. They were supposed to flower, they just went brown straight away. I think there's a single bloom here. So one of those things that I'm going to move away next year to make room for more beautiful things that make me happy. One thing that I did is I hand pollinated some bearded iris. So you still see like the last bits of them here. I collected the seeds, they are stored nice and dry now. And very soon I will sow them because bearded iris are one of those blooms that need to go through a cold spell in order to trigger the germination process. So this is what I'm going to do very soon. If we continue walking, up we go. I just want to show you this here. Beautiful Catinus. This is a variety called Grace, and it got some nice raindrops on it now, and they're like sparkling in the sun, and then combination with a rose here. This is Alden Beeson. I think a wonderful combination. And the funny thing is, this is called smoke bush, and you still see all of these like flower spikes here, and they have like tiny berries on them even. I didn't know that this is going to happen, and it won't be long up until the foliage is going to change color into really wonderful ruby red. So can't wait for this to happen. Really happy with this tiny area here, even though I know that a lot of things here on the slope start to look a little chaotic, just because when you plant a lot of annuals and annuals start to peter out, there is a moment when things just start to look a little shabby and maybe a little bit chaotic. But maybe this is also the fun part of the slope. So if we just continue walking this side here, I just want to make it quick. A big drift of more sedum here. This was Herbstfreude again, flowered beautifully, looked fantastic. Some really nice big tall grasses here. Roses were also fantastic. This is another rose rugosa. This is Thérèse Bonnier. And this is one of those roses where I think it might bring nice winter structure to your garden, because if you look at the stems, they're burgundy red. And when the sun comes, this burgundy red starts to glow a little bit. So it's almost like dogwood. A lot of people plant dogwood because they are fiery red, like really fire engine red, which is beautiful. This is a lot darker, but in a way, it is a rose then. So you have like really wonderful blooms. They're centered, they're double, they're perfect. And then you even got these really wonderful, nice burgundy color stems as a winter structure. So really was keen to show them to you. So we continue walking. This is just like a look on how this kind of like tropical garden side of mine looks. The Ricinus is just fantastic here. Really wonderful, and especially, you can just snip it off. I mean, just look at these fruit here. Aren't they fantastic? Really exotic looking, so happy with them. Also in combination with a dahlia, so a wonderful site here. More asters, and really surprising, this is a cardoon. This is an ornamental artichoke, and yeah, I left it like this because I kind of like when they break open. And every year I think, okay, I've had it, it dies back, but this year fresh growth even comes now. A lot of side shoots, so obviously all of this is probably going to die back during winter time, but it looks fantastic. And the pink phlox that I showed you there is just growing down there. Initially I had it up here, and then I was like last year, oh, that color does not work well. And then I forgot some roots apparently in here, and it grew in. I've just discovered that I have a carpet of tiny phlox plants everywhere here. So one of those things that next year probably, I think I'll leave them now because I don't want to disturb them, but next year probably going to come in here and just plant them all down there. So I'm going to have a massive, huge drift really of pink phlox. So what we're going to do now is we walk back, because I want to show you as a last thing the vegetable garden, because the vegetable garden is an experiment for me. I'm not so much a big vegetable gardener. Like, I have a good background with growing potatoes, beans and pumpkins because those things are very easy. They are always thriving, and I was always harvesting well. So this year I really challenged myself and tried a lot of different things, and some of the things were really fantastic and I couldn't be happier with them. Especially things that are growing in the raised beds, like salad crops. I don't know how much salad a person can eat. I think I sowed a little too many salad crops now. Okay, we're just walking back. You're walking backwards. It's really difficult for you now. And Alfie wants to play with you, which also doesn't make it easier. Again, another aster here. This came from a neighbor, by the way. Pink. Again, Barbie pink, but it was free from a neighbor. And I was like, oh, you know what? I like it. So just let it do its thing. It's kind of nice here, and this is sometimes all that matters. So if we walk here, this is the entire right side of this slope, and this is what I utilize as my vegetable garden. Still, I've got some nice ornamental plants here. So beautiful annual salvia. If I had a greenhouse, I would come in here, take cuttings now, and put them in a greenhouse. I don't have a greenhouse, so I can't really overwinter them, so next year I'm going to buy them again. But raised beds. This is raised beds where I sowed cilantro and different salad crops probably 6 weeks ago, and this is what happened. And we're having salad every single day, and I'm kind of like, wow, it's amazing how much product or how much you can harvest out of a single raised bed. Next thing, bell peppers and chilies. They took forever. Like chilies, okay, I could harvest a couple already probably in August, but bell peppers, that was like really difficult. But now they start to ripen finally. I've got bell peppers in November. Try to show you a good example. Look here. Chocolate, something was it right here. It's a little bad here on this side though already. But in general, they look fantastic. Like yesterday, I really came in here and harvested some of them. I think now it's really starts to get too cold, but I'm happy with them. And if we just go around to the other side, I can show you the chilies because I haven't harvested them because I really want to show you how they are looking. And especially now with the sun. Look here. Can you see that? I mean, isn't that amazing how many chilies I've got? And the beauty of it is I can harvest them and then I can dry them and then you can use them throughout the entire winter. But before I harvest them, I really wanted to show you how they actually look. Last raised bed, there's still some carrots in here, not a lot. Most of them are really small now, so most likely they are for Alfie. But here, I've got the delphiniums that I was just talking about. So this is the first offspring from the delphinium that I showed you that slugs and snails generally don't attack. And I hope that they come through winter and they will thrive into really lovely, cute little plants. And next year I can put them all out there. So in general, this area of the garden was a lot of fun to work with because I did a lot of potting here. I've got my vegetables here. I was growing eggplants here. They just died back because it's way too cold for them now. But I've had so many eggplants. Fruit looked fantastic and they were delicious. Really great, great joy. So I'm absolutely going to do that next year again. Now what we're going to do, we walk to the second layer of this slope because I just quickly want to show you how things are looking there because I am really happy with everything. I mean, like I didn't really have a lot of expectations for the vegetable gardens because I'm just not so much of an experienced vegetable gardener. So whatever I did, I was kind of just like, whoa, we can harvest a broccoli or something. So I was very happy about it. So here I have potatoes and I was harvesting them. Here are Brussels sprouts, and yes, they look terrible because here in the big leaves, caterpillars came in, but what matters is that the Brussels sprouts, they all ripen here. So what I can do is come in and just cut back all of the ugliness, and I will do it so that more sun comes in and all the tiny Brussels sprouts that are forming will be ready to harvest very soon. One of the big success stories, leek. Who would have thought that leek is so easy? Looks fantastic, almost all of them. One thing I learned though is I haven't harvested one yet, but I think I didn't bury them deep enough. So I think I won't have too much white part of it. So one thing I learned for next year. One last broccoli, a purple broccoli. Isn't that cute? Little water on it. Beets were fantastic. The artichokes, they all came back. Fennel was nice, corn was good, beans were fantastic. So a lot of the things were really nice. A couple of things were just lukewarm, like my onions, for example. I read that growing onions is very easy, and I'm going to show you an onion now. So this is a good example on how tall an average onion grew for me. I mean, cute, right? This is what happened. Can somebody tell me what I did so wrong with onions? Maybe they were getting enough sun, or maybe the soil was too rich. I have no idea. I need to do some research. So, because leek was fantastic and onions were not. They were just growing next to another. Maybe they're not a good planting neighbor. Maybe that is the thing. So yeah, I mean they're edible, but clearly this is not like incredible nice to look at, because when I saw them on the label it said like, ooh, big onions, and saw these hands of like people holding a big onion, and I saw myself harvesting them like, oh, I'm gonna have a nice big onion, and then I have this. But all right, it's all a learning experience, and that's it pretty much for the garden tour of November. And I think this is also going to be the last garden tour of this year, because from now on everything is just, I don't want to say downhill, but you know how it goes in the garden. We're diving into winter, and I'm happy that I can still show you at least a little bit, and I could show you a little bit of color, and I could show you a little bit of the produce here that we harvest. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I think we're going to come in and harvest a little bit. We're in the late afternoon. It's going to be like half an hour, and then the sun is going to go away. But what I want to do is just say thank you so much for watching today's video, or even for watching all 3 videos. That were just like an entire garden tour, and I could finally spend a little more time in every single area of the garden. So thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for giving me a thumbs up for my videos, and I'd really love to welcome you next time around in my garden again. Take care, guys. Bye.